There will be a moment for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable members, I have been informed that the Plenary has agreed that there will not be notices of motions or motions without notice, except for those motions which appear on the order paper in the name of the Chief Whip. We now come to the first motion on the order paper as printed in the name of the Chief Whip. Chief Whip.
Thanks very much, Madam Chairperson. I move that notwithstanding Rule 247, subsection 1, which provides that the sitting of the Council will be dedicated for oral questions, the Council considered motions as listed below. The first one is that the Council amend the motion regarding designation of members to the Pan-African Parliament adopted by the House on 28 October 2014 by making the following replacements. Dr. Hunadi Mateme replaced by Mayor Thandi Ruth Mudise. B, Mr. Charles Ngakula replaced by Mr. Zwelivelile Mandela. 3, that Thandi Cecilia Memela be replaced by Thokozile Angela Didiza. Thank you, Chair. Or should I proceed?
Advise that we should actually vote on the first draft resolution before we proceed. Honorable members, I therefore put the question that the motion be agreed to as there is no speakers list. The decision is dealt with in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. I shall therefore ascertain whether all delegation heads are present in the chamber to cast their province's votes. Are all delegations in? Honorable members, Eastern Cape is here. There is a representation from the Free State, Gauteng, KZN, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, the Northwest, the Western Cape. It would seem to me that I do have 5 provinces represented in the chamber, and I shall then proceed to put the question. Order, order, please. You are out of order. I don't know why I'm even listening to you. Will the Northern Cape please behave? Especially the new honorable member. You are welcome, ma'am, by the way. I therefore put the question, is there any province which wants to make a declaration? None. I proceed to ask the provinces in alphabetical order. The Eastern Cape.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Eastern Cape supports.
Eastern Cape, Free State.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Free State has no mandate and therefore should abstain.
Gauteng.
Thank you, Chair. Gauteng supports.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal support, ma'am.
Limpopo, its special delegates.
Thanks, Chair. Limpopo supports.
Mpumalanga.
Thank you, Chair. Mpumalanga agrees.
The Northern Cape.
We don't have.
Northwest.
We concur.
Western Cape.
We support.
Can I be advised how many provinces? Yes, which Free State said they abstained. So how many do I have? Thank you very much. Honorable members, I was ascertaining. You can see my head is still in St. Petersburg. 8 provinces have voted in favor, and therefore we agree. The Chief Whip had already read the draft resolution on the Pan-African Parliament. I therefore also wish to call upon the delegation heads, if they so wish, to make declarations of vote. If not, we can go straight to voting. Any province wishing to make a declaration on the second item, second motion? A declaration? The Honorable Shabang keeps on pointing to Honorable Mikilaikas. Honorable Mikilaikas keeps on smiling at me. So I do not know what I am supposed to do with the delegation from the Free State.
Honorable Chairperson, if my colleague from the opposition, since we have been forsaken by the government of the Free State, so wishes, I think he would like me to make a declaration not on the resolution itself, but on the fact that we are not in a position to vote on this resolution either, because we do not have a mandate and because there is no representative from the government present here, although they're being paid to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I shall proceed. Eastern Cape. Gauteng. Yes, sir.
There is a delegate from the Free State present in the House from the ruling party. Thank you, Chair.
From the Free State. Okay. Order, order, order. I shall now take the provinces alphabetically, the Eastern Cape.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Eastern Cape support the motion.
The Free State.
Thank you, Chairperson. We abstain.
Gauteng.
Gauteng supports, Chair.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal agrees.
Limpopo. Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga agrees.
Northern Cape.
Chairperson, Northern Cape agrees.
The Northwest.
Accepts, Chair.
Western Cape.
We agree.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, but for the drama of the Free State again, 8 provinces have voted in favor. Therefore, the motion on the PAP has been agreed to. Chief Whip, your last draft resolution.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. I move that the Council, notwithstanding provisions of Rule 17, subsection 1 of the Rules of the National Council of Provinces, grants Honorable R.J. Tau leave of absence from proceedings of both the Council and committees of the Council in terms of Rule 17, subsection 2, until the Honorable Member is ready to resume his duties. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Honorable members, I put the motion to the House. It is that the House agrees to allow that the Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the House is granted leave of absence until he is ready to come to work. Eastern Cape?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Eastern Cape supports the motion.
Free State?
Thank you, Chairperson. No declaration on this one?
No.
My apologies for the drama. I can assure you, once we govern the Free State, that we will be here to represent the people. We abstain on this one.
Order, 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 order. The Gauteng?
Representing the people from Gauteng, we agree, Chair.
KwaZulu Natal,
KwaZulu-Natal iyavumelana.
Limpopo,
Limpopo agrees, Chairperson.
Mpumalanga,
Siyavuma thina eMpumalanga sihlala.
Northern Cape,
Northern Cape agrees, Chair.
Northwest,
We accept, Chair.
Western Cape.
Ons steun dit, voorsitter.
Baie dankie. Agbaralet. Honorable members, 8 provinces have agreed to in terms of section 65 of the Constitution. We therefore agree that the Honorable Dau should be back to work for until we are told he is ready to come back to work. Honorable members, Honorable Lund, please behave. Honorable members, I wish to acknowledge our visitors, the Hershey Gymnasium, Upper Secondary School. We are very happy to see you here. We also have 25 students who are between 17 and 18 from Stockholm in Sweden, who are here visiting Cape Town for a period of a week. You are welcome to South Africa. Honorable members, we proceed to We proceed, honorable members, to the questions, and I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the Deputy Minister, Ntate Magwanishe. We shall now proceed to the questions as printed in our question paper. Deputy Minister, the first question is the question which was addressed to the Minister of Trade and Industry. By the Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The incentives provided by the department are an instrument of industrial policy, not political patronage. They are intended to support investment in sectors prioritized in the Industrial Policy Action Plan. Requirements and qualification criteria are published on a DTI's website to ensure fair access to information by all prospective investors. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. The Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Dear. My supplementary question is to find out whether there has been any complaints by any political parties that has been brought to your attention with regard to these incentives. Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
To the best of my knowledge, we have not received any complaints, Honorable Chair, and we also encourage members, if they have any complaints, that our doors are open, but up to so far we have not received anything from the public or from the honorable members.
Thank you, sir. There is no other hand for a supplementary. Honorable Lund.
Good day, Honorable Deputy Minister. Minister, when Deputy Minister, with a quick turnaround of ministers, one of these days you might be a minister, but Honorable Deputy Minister, in theory, your response sounds great and that there's no connected individuals that get any funding, but in practice it doesn't always seem that way. Now, we first need to acknowledge that we have made some progress in expanding the beneficiary base that gets funding. But in reality, the perception is there that it's only a connected few. Now, perception often becomes reality. My question is, will the Honourable Deputy Minister consider establishing and then monitoring a database to ensure that it's not the same connected individuals and companies that get support over and over, but rather that more companies get access and can get funding and then can compete in the market?
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. First of all, I would like to put it on record that we evaluate cases submitted by the DTI on the basis of project outcomes and intentions with the main focus on investment, job creation, transformation, and export promotions. We have also published the list of everybody who has received incentives from the Department of Trade and Industries. So we have a transparent process of who gets what, and there is a criteria that is published on our website. So we allocate funds on the basis of that criteria, not anything else, but that particular criteria, and we have published such.
The Honourable Matebula.
Cancer Chairperson. The Black Industrialist Program has been secretive, lacked transparency, and the Minister felt the need to hide the names of beneficiaries, even when it was not commercially sensitive. How is the public supposed to believe what the Minister is saying, and what has he done to ensure that the process in the department are transparent? Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. What we said is that we were going to publish the list of all beneficiaries, and we did that. When we submitted the annual report to the National Assembly, we published everyone who has benefited from the incentives. You can look at it. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honourable members, that was my last supplementary. We proceed to question number 326. That question was posed by the Honourable Kaula, who unfortunately cannot be with us in the House today. He has a family bereavement and has had to rush back home. However, arrangements had been made that the question would be taken care of by the Honourable Khela. He is not in the House, and therefore, in terms of the rules, I have to proceed without this question because Honourable Khela is not in the House. I therefore would move to question number 309. That question was posed by the Honourable Dikhale. Honourable Dikhale has made arrangements that Honourable Makue will take care of that question. So I proceed to question number 309, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The DTI is one of the key departments responsible for developing the manufacturing sector. This is done with the support of a number of other departments such as Economic Development, National Treasury, Small Business Development, Mineral Resources, Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries, and Rural Development and Land Reform. Collectively, these departments oversee implementation of government's key economic interventions. One of such interventions is IPAP, which is also a critical component of the 9-point plan. It is very difficult to precisely calculate the effectiveness of an intervention such as IPAP as it encompasses such vast and wide-ranging economic terrain. In addition, the terrain is dynamic and IPAP has had to adjust and respond to changes in the global economic environment. Notwithstanding these difficulties, we can point to a number of IPAP interventions which suggest the magnitude of IPAP impact. The auto sector continues to see investment levels at a record high, and industry expects investment to reach 8.2 billion in 2017. In 2016, autos exports exceeded 177 billion for the first time. It is widely accepted that the success of the South African auto sector is due to the DTI's provision of an appropriate incentives and regulatory regime which encourages investments and growth of the sector. By comparison, Australia's auto sector, which a decade or two ago was much bigger than the South African auto sector, has just seen its last auto manufacturer close down for good. In clothing and textile, the DTI has arrested the decline of the sector through careful provision of both financial and non-financial support, has assisted the sector to turn around. It is important to highlight that when the DA was advising the government to allow this grandfather sector to die, this administration chose to intervene to save over 70,000 jobs. Additionally, 9,000 new jobs were created. Agro-processing, the provision of manufacturing competitiveness enhancement program has assisted the sector to weather the impact of the global financial crisis, and the sector has begun growing exports rapidly. In 2016, the sector exported goods valued at over 800 million US dollars. There are many other such examples in the metal, business process services, chemical, and others. The impact of the intervention such as IPAP cannot be measured only in terms of contribution to the GDP, jobs, and exports. Rather, IPAP is responsible for protecting, deepening, and transforming a range of value chains, some of which start in mining, agriculture, and services, but at some point have a manufacturing dimension. It is the deepening of industrialization activities, the sustained creation of decent jobs, the improvement in employee skills and expertise, transformation of the sector, and continued growth of the entire value chain that represent the impact of IPAP on the South African economy. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Makue.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. You have given an elaborate reply, which is welcome, but I just wanted to look at the one component of your reply, which is when you talk about IPAP and exports. Are you able, Deputy Minister, through you, Chairperson, to give us an indication of what are the immediate export activities that are being facilitated by the department?
The Deputy Minister.
One of the biggest is in the auto sector. We are exporting something to the value of more than 15 billion US dollars to the US, the 3 series. And through our Invest SA, we are taking South African exports to other countries in the world. This is one of the issues that I can talk about, one of the many that are in the export sector.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Lund.
Honorable Deputy Minister, in the words of your political senior, the Minister, he said, there's an even more pressing need for structural change in the economy. We do need to acknowledge that South Africa just cannot get the economic growth to address this massive unemployment by doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. In many other developing countries, small businesses contribute a massive percentage of the GDP and employ thousands of people. They even contribute to massive exports by working together through government. What is your department doing to assist the Department of Small Business Development to create a market for small businesses in South Africa apart from the informal market that they currently have internally?
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, what we have agreed that we will do, the Department of Trade and Industry, working with the Department of Small Businesses, we are going to have joint export activities, especially to the African market, where we take small business along with us, where we pay for them, those that are export ready, to export into the African market and to the rest of the world.
Thank you. Honourable members. Your hand was up and you just made a follow-up question. Honorable members, is there any other member who wishes to make a supplementary question? One supplementary per member. I'm not sure whether 2 supplementaries in one question is allowed. There is a... Please let me finish. There is an anticipation that you will have 4 members doing supplementaries. I suspect other members have not been traveling. They have been traveling right in the chamber. Is there any other member who has a supplementary? None? Honorable Lont, you will take. You are my last, Honorable Matebula.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister, you said that there is a planning in place with the Department of Small Business Development to take these small businesses into, especially Africa, to find a market for them. Now, the Department of Small Business Development was created in 2015. By my understanding that you've said now in the past 2 years, you've done nothing concrete in getting small businesses that market. If that assumption is correct and we're only looking forward, please can you give a date on when that first expedition is going to be, together with Department of Small Business Development, and also then your commitment of funding that trip that you set for the small businesses?
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We have a list of trips and we advertise them in our website, where we do outbound investment missions, where we invite businesses that will be part of those particular trips. But if you also want to know what the Department of Small Businesses is doing, I think you can also pose a question to them. But in as far as working together, we do work together, and we always ensure that we take businesses that are export ready to the African market.
The Honorable Matebula.
Nakensa Chairperson. Is lack of substantial subsidies protection of in-fact industries through tariff not the main weakness of industrial policy action plan?
Deputy Minister.
Can I repeat that again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is lack of substantial subsidies protection of in-fact industries through tariff not the main weakness of industrial policy action plan?
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. We do have incentives. But
Deputy Minister, please raise your voice a little.
Okay. We do have incentives. We do have incentives in the film sector. We do have incentives in the auto sector. We do have incentives. And where there is substantial harm that can be shown that an industry has been affected, then we do act through a due process outlined by ITEC.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we proceed to question number 323. That question was posed by Honorable Dr. Vauda. Arrangements have been made that the Honorable Shabangu takes care of the question. Deputy Minister, question 232.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is entrusted with looking at the rescue of the South African poultry industry. In this regard, the DTI is entrusted with the development of industry-specific export strategy. The agro-processing sector desk is working with TISA, which is Trade and Invest South Africa, which is a division of the Department of Public Enterprises, of Energy, Trade and Industries, on developing a strategy. Poultry producers have been invited to participate in TISA-led missions. The poultry task team is comprised of representatives from government, business, and labor, and was established to address a wide range of complex programs in the domestic poultry. The task team has identified several work streams for work to be undertaken over short and long term, to address the wide range of issues affecting the poultry sector. Steady progress has been registered. Achievements to date include a 13.9% safeguard duty on important products. Work to investigate further safeguard measure is being undertaken by ITAC in keeping with the due process requirements which apply to trade measures. The Department of Trade and Industry launched a 1 billion rand agro-processing incentive to boost domestic investment, including the agro-processing value chain. Procurement legislation has been used to raise aggregate domestic demand for poultry products, and an instruction note has been sent out by the National Treasury instructing all state procurement agencies to use Regulation 9.4 of the amended regulations of the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act to procure locally produced products. Ongoing work related to the outbreak of avian influenza in Southern Africa and centenary and phytosanitary measures is being undertaken by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. Work to identify new investment opportunities for parts of the poultry value chain is being undertaken by the Department of Economic Development through Industrial Development Corporation. Announcement in this regard will be made in due course. Finally, work is underway to increase South Africa's capacity to export poultry products to traditional and new export destinations and to raise aggregate domestic demand. This work is also being undertaken with the private sector, and progress will be reported given in due course.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Shabangu.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Minister. Chair, let me first apologize for putting the cart before the horse. That's how we are. My simple question is, what is the status of the rescue plan which was developed by the interdepartmental task team that was set up by him in order to rescue the South African poultry industry? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
But I have just answered, Chairperson.
Honorable Shabangu, do you want to rephrase your supplementary? No. That member is protected. Might be simple for you. I'm saying rephrase Muranaka because they say you are repeating the same question.
I'm not repeating. Maybe let me repeat myself.
Yes, sir.
Saying, what is the status of the rescue plan which was developed by the interdepartmental task team that was set up by him in order to rescue the South African poultry industry? That's the question.
Thank you. You have repeated yourself, but you have also repeated the principal question. You were supposed to put a supplementary question which would have arisen from the response which the Deputy Minister had given. I must proceed. I move on to the Honorable Magwebu.
Nkosi Sihlalo, ndiyabulela kakhulu. Deputy Minister, I just want to find out from you, as you have considered, this poultry industry has been under stress for so long. The task team was set a long time ago. And in February this year, 1,350 workers lost their jobs because the abattoir had to close down. Again, this research has proven that the poultry industry has a potential to create jobs instead of losing jobs. But because the government is failing to intervene and the task team has not completed this job, just want to find out from you, how soon can this be completed? And secondly, what are the other measures that can be put in place to avoid this dumping and invest in our poultry industry to grow? Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think, as I've already said, that the first issue to report is that 13.9% import tariff as a safeguard measure has been put in place. Secondly, in terms of the WTO rules, we have to have a due process if we are to increase the import tariffs. And that work is being done by ITEC, which is independent from the Department of Trade and Industries. Once it is reported, then the report will come to the Department of Trade and Industries. But also, in addition to that, we have an incentive that we have put in place of 1 billion rand to try and assist agro-processing, including the poultry industry.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mtimunye.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Deputy Minister, between me and you, we will agree that among other reasons that the rescue plan on the poultry industry was put into place is the fact that the US administration has put in place a piece of legislation called AGOA. I want to believe that is one other reasons, among others. Are you in the position to share with us, even after after 3 or 4 years now that the AGOA has been put in place by the previous administration in the US, even in the aftermath of the election of Donald Trump into the office, if the poultry industry, what do I say, market doubts or market shivers, are we able to allay the fears that we have in the country as part of the rescue plan? I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear. I'm trying to understand, in the aftermath of election of the new president in the US, with AGOA in place, I want to believe it took it over from the previous administration. Is our industry, out of the rescue plan that the country has developed, is the industry now beginning to have some hope with regard to the market trends in the world?
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. The biggest importers of meat, it's Brazil, who are dumping.
Your voice, please.
Oh, it's Brazil, then EU, then US is number 3. But we think that the US has introduced what they call out-of-cycle review, where they can review you at any time if there's a complaint. There's going to come a time where we will have to really ask a question whether AGOA is it still economically viable for us. But we think that with the strategies of exporting of one, ensure that the industry is not concentrated. Secondly, with this 1 billion incentive, we want to assist to ensure that we find other markets, especially in the SADC, in SADC, to ensure that we export to our SADC countries and in Africa, that we're able to ensure that we're not highly dependent on Brazil and EU for deep-bone meat.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mpambo Sibukwane.
Thank you, Chair. To the Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, with some provinces having almost 70% of the poultry due to bird flu, which is our really main concern, the majority of South Africans still want to get the primary protein from poultry, which we love as diabetics, and therefore spend billions on it. We will probably have to import significant amounts into the country in the near future. And suppose you buy into this. We'll probably have to import significant amounts, I repeat, to the country in the near future. This makes the phenomena of dumping more pertinent. Deputy Minister, I would like to know from you, what measures have you put in place from your department to ensure imports are quality and affordable? Furthermore, whilst at the same time, sustainability of our poultry industry is ensured.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, we have been assisted very much as a select committee when the Deputy Director General, 1 week after we learned about the poultry crisis, came to our select committee to brief us. And one of the things that he shared with us that I want to explore with you further now is what progress is being made vis-à-vis the diversification of the meat that we get from chicken. We, for example, learned that what's happening is we import bologna that is made from chicken from other countries. And I wanted to know if the poultry industry in South Africa has been convinced in terms of looking at utilizing chicken as a product, not only for the way that it is being served and made available to us as consumers now, but to explore those other value adds to the chicken as a product.
The chicken movement, Deputy Minister.
Part of what we are looking at is a transformation of the industry. And to that, we are investing in 10 other companies. We're doing a study, in fact, we're investing in 10 other companies that will be looking at the deboning of the chicken and all of those issues to ensure that we are part of the whole value chain and that we protect the South African market.
Honorable members, we move on to question number 314. That question was posed by Honorable Lund. Deputy Minister. Question number 314.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chairperson. The DTI has noted with sadness the loss of jobs due to scaling down of operations at a wind turbine factory within the proposed Atlantis Green Tech SEZ. Such job losses led to the untold suffering by workers, their families and communities. The scaling down of operations at the wind turbine factory in the proposed Atlantis Green Tech SEZ was not due to any delay in designating or gazetting the proposed Atlantis Green Tech SEZ. The DTI did not in any way seek to deliberately or unduly delay the designation and gazetting of the Atlantis SEZ. The delay in finalizing the application for designating the Atlantis SEZ was mainly due to a misunderstanding of some of the requirements of the SEZ designation as outlined in the SEZ Act. Following some of the areas where there was non-compliance with the requirement of the SEZ Act. Applicant wanted the entire Atlantis industrial area designated as an SEZ. Some of the land and properties in this industrial area belong to various private property owners. Such a proposal was thus not workable, but it took time to resolve these issues with the applicant. The original proposal was that the City of Cape Town would have control over the SEZ land and thus makes decision about the use of the SEZ outside of the SEZ entity established to manage the SEZ. This was not compliant with the SEZ Act. There was no proper financial model for the proposed zone as required by the SEZ Act. It took time to work out a proper financial model for consideration by the SEZ Advisory Board. Institutional governance and framework. There was no clear governance and institutional framework from the SEZ. Clear investment pipeline and letters of commitment. While Atlantis SEZ has a solid investment pipeline, it was not so in the beginning, and thus the viability of the SEZ was difficult to test. All these factors show that DTI never had any intention of stalling or hindering the designation of the Atlantis SEZ. There were purely technical factors that had to be attended to before the finalization of the designation process. At this stage, the Atlantis SEZ has been gazetted for public comment before the final designation. Public comments are now being consolidated, and the recommendation will soon be forwarded to the Minister for consideration before the determination the determination is made by the Minister.
The Honourable Lund.
Honourable Deputy Minister, there's hundreds of workers from that factory that's sitting at home for large parts of the month, earning only a fraction of what they used to earn. This has consequences not just for them, but for their families and for the community at large. the inability to get the necessary documentation and agreements signed by government has affected that entire community. When we visited them as the NCOP, they pleaded with us to engage government, and specifically the renewable energy industry said that if we start investing more, not less, and making sure that the processes run smoothly, they will be able to function and do the job that's expected of them. They just want government to facilitate a process. Now my question to you are, by what and by when can we expect all the necessary support to help that this factory and other industries are up and running as soon as possible to give the necessary economic boost and ensure that there's no further job losses?
Deputy Minister.
I think we agree that job losses are very painful, and it's not something that we can be happy about. But at the same time, it will be important that as we do things, we are not seen to be violating the law. So it was important that compliance is stuck to and that everything is done according to the law. And since now there is a pipeline of investments, we think that new factories that are going to be opened there will address the issue of the unemployment in that particular area. In as far as by when, as I've already said that now everything is about public comments, and then immediately after the public comments, the minister will be in a position of designating.
Are you in effect saying that you are re-establishing the SEZ? Are you in effect saying you are re-establishing the SEZ?
No, the process.
I have not forgotten you, Mr. Shabangu, Mr. Magweve, Mr. Khai.
The process, Chairperson, is that after there's a designation now for public comment. It's a gazetting for public comments. After that, after the public comments have been done, then it goes to the minister for designation.
Okay. Honorable Shabangu.
Thank you, ma'am. Deputy Minister, does South Africa's building and production of machinery and parts for renewable energies continues to grow, adding jobs and exports. Does your department support the proposed nuclear deal, given the negative consequences it would have on the renewable energies production sector? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, renewables, nuclear, coal are part of the South Africa's energy mix. Now, adoption of nuclear does not mean that you would not do renewables, or you would not also do coal-fired power stations. That is part of the policy of the South African renewable mix.
The Honorable Magwebu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Minister, I hear that you say the department regrets the loss of jobs and the delay was not intentional. But I have a different view because your regret is too little, too late. In a country where there's a problem of unemployment, your delay not to expedite the declaration and the gazetting of this SEZ has been deliberate, precisely because the cabinet is putting pressure on your department to focus on the nuclear deal, because that's what you're up to. And this is another corruption, another fail of the ANC. I put it to you. What is your comment, Minister?
Order. Deputy Minister. Order, 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 order. Order. Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I know that provinces throughout the country do apply for designation of SEZs. I want to know if there has been the application from Atlantis. Has it also been dealt with similarly with other applications in other provinces? Thank you.
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think the law is the same for all provinces. So we treat all provinces the same, we apply the same law. So all provinces that have been able to get designation is because they've complied with the law. And we are not penalizing those that are not complying, but we work with them, we assist them so that they can be compliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Honorable members, we proceed to question number 310, posed by Honorable Mtimunye. Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Since the introduction of the SEZ policy in 2013 and the SEZ Act number 16 of 2014, the DTI has worked with provinces and the economic min-max to identify, plan, and develop the new SEZ initiatives across the country. The economic min-max appreciated that while there are many regions across the country that will benefit from the SEZ program, the country does not have the resources and capacity to plan and develop many SEZ at a go. Provinces then had to prioritize their regions for SEZ development. A total of 10 SEZ initiatives were agreed to, but subject to feasibility and viability studies. In the original list of proposals for new SEZ in Mpumalanga, the province had identified Nkomazi, Middleburg, Sekunda, and Bushbuck Ridge for SEZ development. Because of the capacity issues alluded to above and the understanding on prioritization, Mpumalanga province then preferred Nkomazi for the development. Currently, the DTI is still working with the National Treasury to assess resource implications for the SEZ program and then further determine the most appropriate way forward with respect to the second round of SEZ. Any other consideration to add on the 10 will be dependent on the economic viability assessment as well as the availability of resources for the second round of SEZ initiatives. 4 of the 10 SEZ initiatives have passed the viability test. The next in line is Nkomazi and Rustenburg.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mtimunye.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Minister, I think I welcome your answer. But Minister, I think you will also agree that in the second round, we need really to dig deep in terms of looking at the most needy areas in terms of this SSZ, because in my view, Minister, this is one instrument of government that can assist areas where there is no economic activity, to ignite some economic activity. The typical example is the area I'm raising here around the former Wandebele area, where there's virtually no economic activity, and except for people traveling every day on that infamous Mondoto road between Tshwane and Wandebele. And I think an instrument like SEZ will be able to assist to ignite some economic activity. And will you concede if I were to request that in the second round of consideration of the executive, such areas will be considered really, because that is where your poor of the poorest are.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think we do understand the issue of Moloto Road and the surrounding areas, and the issue that relates to areas like those that are economically depressed. And we think that working with provinces in the second round, those are the areas that maybe can assist you to launch an application, but it will be subject to availability of resources and also the feasibility. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Shabangu, you are next.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Minister, the economic distress of the former Bantustan was due to structural problems of supply of appropriate labor, but equally demand. But also these economies were started with high investment in poorly, spatially planned economy. What is your department doing to ensure that special economic zones are not going to be compounded by the same problems as those attempted by Bantu stance. Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
First of all, I think it is important to mention that our process is extremely consultative. We work with municipalities, we work with provinces to identify the relevant SEZ. And we are not identifying SEZ as pockets like it was done in the past. That is the first thing. And we always ensure that even now, the SEZ advisory board, we always ensure that they are well capacitated. We have a training agreement with China to every time the advisory board, they go for serious training so that they can be able to run the SEZ in a way that is different from the past ones.
The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mphathiswa Ngqongqoshe osebenza njengephini ngiyafisa ukwazi ukuthi iziphi inhlelo ezikhona eminyangweni wakho zokulekelela ukukhulisa ukuhweba nokukhiqiza kwezikhungo zamabhizinisi lawa abizwa ngokuthi ama-industrial development zones. Ngibuza lo mbuzo ngoba nge-provincial week besilapha eRichards Bay Industrial Development Zone sabona ukuthi likhona ikhono nanokuthi bangathuthuka bakhulise ukuhweba kwabo abakuyisa nakwamanye amazwe. Kodwa ke angazi ukuthi inhlelo zomnyango wakho zithini ngokulekelela lezo zikhungo zamabhizinisi ezikulelo zinga nje ezweni lilonke noma mhlawumbe ke kungeyona ke iKZN necessarily kodwa nje ezweni lilonke iziphi inhlelo ezikhona ngoba sibheke kakhulu ngqongqoshe ukwakhiwa kwamathuba emisebenzi.
Deputy Minister.
Ngiyabonga mama, ngibonga Chairperson. Okunye esikwenzayo mama ukuthi indawo mase-designate SEZ ama-businesses maweza siwancedisa nge-infrastructure ukuthi imali ye-infrastructure wancedisa imali ye-infrastructure nokubancedisa ukuthi sihahe ama-investors ukuthi eze kulo ndawo leyo. Kodwa ngathanda ukuthi for especially ilento i-Richards Bay, because according to us it's one of the better performing SEZ in the country after Ngqura, ukuthi kunamahlelo afana nalena ukuthi every time siyabathatha ukuthi sibaneze i-capacity ukuthi kube ne-continuous improvement ukuze bakwazi ukuthi balethe ama-investment basustain ama-investment kuloma areas we-NCZ la basebenza khona.
Honorable members, that was my last supplementary on the last question. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Deputy Minister, for standing in ably for yourself and for your department and your minister. Thank you very much. This concludes the business of the day. Honorable members, you are requested to remain standing until the procession has left the House. The House is adjourned.